For more on that now, let's bring in our Wednesday panel, Labor MP Julian Hill and the Liberal MP Aaron Violi. Good morning to you both. Julian, I'll start with you here, just on Mr Husic's comments. Do you agree with them that Australia needs to push ahead with targeted sanctions?
Well, those images which we just saw are beyond appalling. I mean, they're dehumanising. I've said right from October 2022 in my first speech on this matter that collective punishment of the Palestinian people, of Palestinian civilians, is not a proportionate response as part of Israel's war on Hamas, war with Hamas. Mass starvation, manipulation and use of humanitarian aid to collectively punish civilians as part of a military conflict is outside international law. The Prime Minister's language has rightly been strongly condemning of Israel's recent behaviour, of the humanitarian blockade, and we couldn't be clearer. Israel must let aid in at sufficient volumes, not just 5 trucks, when 500 trucks of aid a day are needed to prevent famine, to prevent babies dying. And I'll make this point. This is not a drought. These people are starving just a few kilometres away from fully stocked supermarkets and warehouses. This is a choice. Now, with regard to Ed, Ed is a friend of mine, and Ed, as an activist backbencher, has not just a right, but I think Aaron would agree with me, it's in the Westminster tradition, that we have ministers in the cabinet that set policy, we have other ministers, and then we have backbenchers that have not just a right but a responsibility in our Westminster system to speak up on issues that concern them, to sometimes make people feel uncomfortable or push the envelope. I've done that myself for many years as a backbencher before I was in the executive.
Sure. But just on his point of sanctions,
also appreciate, and I'll finish on this point, ministers, well, I'll finish on this point which addresses the question I think you're going to. Ministers don't speculate on sanctions. The Australian government doesn't speculate on sanctions. When a decision on those kinds of measures is taken, it's announced and implemented at the same time. So, you know, I'm not avoiding the question. I'm
but Ed Husic is
that we don't rule things in and we don't rule things out.
Pushing toward it as a backbencher. I mean, so in that sense, would you agree with him?
Well, we're going to go around in circles, but as you know, ministers have a different responsibility. Many of us share, you know, the views that backbenchers put on all sorts of issues, and we prosecute them within the executive in a different way.
I guess I'm just wondering what sanctions
I think that's an entirely proper answer. Well, it sounds like, you know, you need to have a chat with Ed. We're going to go around in circles. I'm not avoiding the question. Ed's doing his job. I'm doing mine, and these discussions happen within the government.
Let's bring in Aaron. Good morning, Aaron. Welcome to the program, by the way. Good to see you. So what are your thoughts on what Julian said and what Ed has said as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 parts to this, and I'll firstly go to, as Julian said, those images are disturbing and shocking, and this is a humanitarian crisis that is heartbreaking, and no one wants to see this. And we need to find a way collectively, globally, to find peace in the Middle East, and obviously make sure that those hostages are returned and we can find a 2-state solution that is sustainable. But as Julian said, you know, everyone has the right to humanitarian aid, and we need to make sure that flows. But equally, Israel does have the right to make sure that it's going where it's needed, to the innocent civilians, not to Hamas, and that's what we're seeing, that tension point at the moment. Obviously, Ed is now on the backbench, and as Julian said, backbenchers have that right to freedom. I know he provided economic commentary about the timid economic agenda of the government last term. I look forward to him continuing that, but obviously he is taking that. This is an issue that is close to Ed, and he spoke about it within Cabinet solidarity last term. I think the interesting part to this is we saw Senator Payman was forced to leave the ALP over her actions last year when it came to the Middle East and Gaza. So we'll see what happens with Ed's actions, but obviously there's a little bit of tension there that he has the right, as Julian said, to speak freely as a backbencher, but we'll see how far he pushes that in this term of Parliament.
Well, so when he pushes the boat out on sanctions, would you be against that, Aaron?
Well, I think we need to look at the detail. And it's a broad comment is sanctions. Who, what kind of sanctions? They're really, it's a broad comment. So I'm not going to provide, you know, a specific answer on the detail of that because it depends on what he's talking about in terms of detail.
Just a quick one here, gents. I know you're in Sydney. Welcome to Sydney, by the way, Julian. But a couple of Victorians. A big issue today is the machete ban that comes into play from midday. Just 30 seconds for each. Do you think it'll work? Julian, you first.
Well, I support the actions of the Victorian government. Obviously, state and territory governments have the lead on community safety issues like this. Those scenes we've seen are completely unacceptable, and I support anything that the government can do to further clamp down on community safety and to put these repeat offenders behind bars where they belong.
Aaron?
Oh, it's deeply concerning. Many Victorians are concerned, shopping centre violence is growing. It shows the Allen government has no control of the situation. These offenders, reports today, had them out on bail. The question is, why would she put the ban in September when she obviously had the ability to do it now, given this issue was ongoing for months and months, and every Victorian is feeling unsafe. It was raised with me when I was door knocking out in the community during the election. The Allen government is failing to keep Victorians safe, and it's disappointing that they're making policy on the run because they have no solutions to the challenges we face.
Julian, Aaron, good to see you both on this Wednesday morning. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Authorised by Aaron Violi, Liberal Party, Lilydale.